Blessings, everyone. It's time for another major astrological transit examination. And in this video, we are talking all about Pluto in Aquarius, which starts on March 23rd, 2023, and is going to be one of the chief influences of our experience for over 20 years, all the way up to 2044. This is a big era change. It's a big generational change. And so we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to this particular planetary move. That being said, if you are new to my style of doing all-in-one readings, I do recommend that you navigate yourself to the down bar below, as you probably will because I'm going to be organizing this video into chapters. And in the description bar beneath this video, I am going to have a list of each sign and what areas of life are coming into chief focus for each sign. And remember to check your ascendant, your rising sign. We're going to be doing an overview of what Pluto's all about. We're going to be talking about, again, the last 14 years of Pluto being in Capricorn, doing a bit of a debrief and, seeing how it parallels with the last time we had Pluto in Capricorn, right up at the end of the 18th century. We're going to be talking about Pluto in Aquarius, what it means to have Pluto in its fall. We're going to talk about Pluto in Aquarius in history, as well as how it's going to be affecting each and all of you. And then I'm going to make some predictions about Pluto in Aquarius for this next 20 years. A lot to talk about, so either strap in or be prepared to navigate some chapters. If you ever want to get a session with me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com, or you can follow the links in the down bar below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. And of course, engagement helps this channel out a lot. And this first 2 years of Pluto, in Aquarius is also going to be heavily influenced by Saturn also being in Pisces, closing up a 30-year cycle. And so if you haven't seen my Saturn in Pisces video, I recommend you check that out as well, because that's going to play in heavily to the 2023, 2024, and 2025 experience. So what do we do with Pluto? What is Pluto? How do we make sense of Pluto? Because it seems to be a bit of a hodgepodge of extremes. And that's kind of what Pluto actually is. Again, it's the planet of death, rebirth, transformation, transmutation, desire, secrets, the erotic, the shadow, the unconscious drives, power, and force. And in collective astrology, what we're all going to be experiencing in addition to what's happening personally, but just, societally, Pluto rules we might define an era on based on what is most elevated or most celebrated or most prominent commonly among people, for better or worse. Remember, Pluto kind of covers the extremes, positive and negative, at the time, defining our experience. And so let's actually look back a little bit. Let's do a bit of a debrief on Pluto in Capricorn, which we started to feel technically towards the end of 2007 as he was creeping up on the cusp of Sagittarius going into Capricorn, but really it's a 2008 to 2023 transit. The major Capricorn themes being economy, order, structure, tradition, governing powers, systemization, financial health, discipline, promotion, prominence, upward mobility, trade, social identity, cultural identity, and hierarchy. And, when we look at Pluto kind of talking about the positive and the negative extremes, that's basically been the global conversation or the cultural conversation socially, spiritually, financially, politically for 14 years. It's come up in good ways. It's come up in very challenging and very toxic ways. And that has been sort of Pluto's main focus here. Pluto in Capricorn tends to be a very left hemisphere of the brain kind of priority, or brings that priority to the forefront. There are some problematic elements that come up with this as well, because sometimes Pluto in Capricorn can focus a bit on the negative extremes of Capricorn, which go into the realm of uniformity, copycatting, tribalism, social and cultural engineering, the prioritization and obsession with control, overly streamlined cookie cutter living expectations or living models. And all of those have been big conversations as well over the course of this period. When it comes to history, right, looking back at history times, the last time we had Pluto in Capricorn was just at the end, or towards the end, I should say, of the 18th century, 1762 through 1778. This was the late Enlightenment era when it comes to just societal progress, growth, what was going on. It's right before coming up on the Romantic era, which is what we're going to have a bit of a resurgence of when Pluto goes into Aquarius. So the late Enlightenment era is, it's this chapter of history of thought, post-Voltaire, kind of philosophical movement focusing on reason, rationalism, determinism, and works of big-name philosophers such as Derrida, John Locke, Hobbes. You could look at them as sort of like the thought leaders of their time. And they had great momentum during this time, challenging religious orthodoxy in favor of personal liberty, as, at least initially. Some schools of thought ended up becoming almost religious themselves because of the heavy left brain focused wanting to over-systematize and politicize everything, so kind of made such works occasionally either hypocritical or a complete mess or waste or all of the above. Much like the personal development thought leader movements of this last Pluto in Capricorn experience. But it's over. We also had all kinds of different systems come into place and big political shifts as well. We had the stock exchange established, the American Revolution and Declaration of Independence was basically started and finished during this period. The Declaration of Independence was signed right at the very end of Pluto in Capricorn. And we had the first beginnings of the French Revolution, which would get underway during Pluto in Aquarius. And we also had the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, or the first rumblings of the Industrial Revolution. But that actually picked up speed after Pluto entered Aquarius, very shortly after, like less than a decade after. And so that's what we're really experiencing right now. Pluto going into Aquarius's key focus is all about quickening. I've actually dubbed this the quickening. I want to make a special note here before going forward. Pluto is in its fall in Aquarius, which is actually going to take a lot of the edge out of Pluto being in Aquarius. I know there are a lot of astrologers out there talking about war, death, and bloodshed. Because, during Pluto in Capricorn, sensationalism sells, not after we get Pluto into Aquarius, but, Pluto is going to be in its fall, which means a lot of the shadowy elements, the negative sides of what we're going to talk about, are not going to be as intense. They're not going to be as strong. We're not going to have these split, polarized, negative, kind of toxic black and white extremes as we go through Pluto in Aquarius the way we did with Capricorn, right? Splitting into black and white thinking is actually, very distorted thinking, and that can be a negative of Pluto in Capricorn. But as we go into Pluto in Aquarius, a lot of that really kind of calms down and chills out. In fact, there's a huge focus with Pluto on not just rapid evolution, but also making things easier on everybody. There is a huge humanitarian focus to Aquarius, of course, naturally, but we also have this focus on invention, imagination, experimentation, creativity, a celebration of eccentricity, technological advancement and reform, exploration, authenticity, uniqueness, discovery, greater focus on invention, innovation, art, creativity, and imagination, and the celebration of, bettering the quality of life for the common man, common woman, common everyone, as well as bringing in a celebration of the esoteric as opposed to the exoteric. And there's also a focus on creating what is missing. This is a time of mass invention, as I said. I want to remind people of a few things that happened the last time we had Pluto in Aquarius, a few big inventions that did change the course of history and, of course, launch and advance our society quite quickly and push that industrial technological revolution. It was during Pluto in Aquarius that we had the invention of bifocal glasses, the power looms, circular saws, gas engines. We had the first prototypes of chemical batteries, the cotton gin, ball bearings, threshing machines, all of these things which hastened the advancement of the Industrial Revolution all came into play, came forth into being during the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. And so you can imagine what kind of effect those kinds of technological advances had on a growing and fast evolving society. We're going to have our own versions of that as we go through this next 20 years. There's also going to be this big move away from impositions and service of social institutions, traditions, and anything that was maybe imposed or an imposed sense of identity, social function, or purpose. The Romantic era was a time of getting back to nature, organic spirituality. A lot of revivals of the old ways actually have their roots going back into the Romantic era and Pluto transiting Aquarius. It's the season of the witch. A focus on the soul as a conscious entity, getting away from social engineering and cookie-cutter living, and the exploration of individual uniqueness apart from group identification and determinism, with a focus on personal, spiritual, and social autonomy, humanism, creativity, originality, and true character. So how does this all play in for you? What is going on with you this next 20 years, with a special emphasis on 2023 and 2024? Well, for the next 20 years, this area of your life, again, as I said in the very beginning, will be filled with the highest highs, but also some of the biggest battles. It is a hotspot for massive growth opportunities, transitions, and moves, and the last 14 years of your life are coming up for transitions and departures that will be moving you to a whole new world. Expect big advancements, windfalls, and level ups that will be transforming the quality of life in this area of your chart, but will also come from many big moves, separations, departures, and transitions. Cords, chains, limitations, attachments, and binds are all eliminated, which free you from oppressive circumstances and commitments that you thought you had to be bound to. You might end up feeling uprooted and moved, so to speak, to a new sense of home and prosperity. For some of you, this will be literal. And you will also find that you will need to be ready to let go of a lot of old norms or old forms of security that were holding you in a space of stagnancy. Life direction changing events take you off many roads you've been on since late 2007, and it will be both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. And we're going to find that this area is also being infused with lots of money and the strongest allies, friendships, and relationships in your life, whether they are people that you already know, finally coming closer, being more active and engaged, as well as you building a new sense of community for yourself in this area. However, you will find that all the problems of the past, their cause, core, effect, and legacy will be getting eliminated as well, right? Pluto is all about transition and transmutation. Adversarial influences, both those known as well as hiding, and even those hiding in plain sight, will be revealed more so and become unignorable. And this is something a lot of us have also been noticing, this last year, even from about summer of 2022. But this is going to get even stronger and just, again, for everybody's own good. We need to know about those kinds of things. Liabilities, setbacks, wrong turns, and their chief influences will be getting exposed for what they are and their parts in it all. For a lot of you, you're going to notice that 2023 and 2024 especially is going to be taking a crack at 2007, 2008, and a little bit of 2009 in your life. If you want to reflect on that, see how that's going to play out for you. Pluto shows us where we come into power, but also where we must allow for the destruction and demolition of the evils of our lives in order to enjoy the beneficial support Pluto can offer. So, predictions for Pluto in Aquarius with an emphasis on 2023, to 2030. Fusion power being realized and integrated ahead of schedule. I wrote ahead of schedule because I had just done some work on looking and, making my predictions, and then I was talking to my friend about fusion power, and I feel like we're going to have fusion power by 2030, not at or after 2030. But I think fusion power is going to be realized, perfected, and integrated ahead of schedule. This is going to completely transform the fuel and energy economy. It's going to go through a bit of an apocalypse and a bit of a new awakening. And this is going to transform basically the way we do business, the way we live, and the quality of life for everybody. I'm seeing massive drops in cost of material goods due to cheaper energy, drastically alters our economic structure, especially focusing on housing costs. Housing costs plummet with the advancement of production technology, which allows for more universally accessible housing and ends to homelessness in many areas. Construction, new construction, building your own home and building homes for others. Artificial intelligence proliferation creates economic and professional shifts in the white-collar job world, especially when it comes to situations where, all right, look, we got to think about how AI is going to work when it comes to, say, actuaries and underwriters, analytics, data processing, all of that. And I do see that this is going to take a lot of the white-collar job market through a spin. And it's not something that is going to get stopped or halted. And, we want to pay attention to what this could imply in the positive versus give in to Pluto in Capricorn energy and let ourselves panic. We have the advent of universal basic income by 2028. And I do think that that is going to be, of course, largely in part to everything costing less and not as many people needing to actually work. And we are going into a space where, that UBI might start as a stipend, right, in certain spaces, but, many countries, we're just going to be in a space where we have to think about how we handle the labor economy and not so much identify with toil. This is the end of the 5-day/40-hour work week. I do think we are all going to be working a lot less, especially when it comes to the fact that so many things are going to just be going away. You are just going to have to find out who you are instead of identifying with the brand you decided to be if your identity came from your labor. Corporate personhood was also a very Pluto in Capricorn thing, which is not going to be a thing with Pluto in Aquarius. Due to the drastic shifts in production and fuel economies, many second and third world countries will also be brought closer to first world status. And during the Saturn and Pisces years especially, 2023 to 2025, cures for major illnesses such as breast cancer, HIV and AIDS, as well as jumps in prevention and slowing for MS and dementia will be established and made mainstream. Okay, this is another one of those big joint influences here with Pluto in Aquarius and Saturn in Pisces at the same time. I also predict, lastly, that life expectancy is going to go through a major extension for everybody as we go through this next 20 years, but especially the biggest, I guess you could say, jumps occurring within the next 7 to 10. And that's because not only are we looking at a big advancement in age-reversing technology or a revolution against aging, a revolution against death, right? Pluto in Aquarius. But I also predict that it just has to do with the fact that the landscape, culturally, atmospherically, environmentally, things are in a space where our bodies, our nutrition, our general space and energy are in a spot where we are now suddenly living way longer. And I do predict that, many of us are going to be living into our 110s. They're going to find that out. This is going to be a major shift in our health. And so I do feel life expectancy extension is going to be a big theme of this coming 7 to 10 years. I feel like, a lot of, 60 will be the new 40. People who say 60 is the new 40 now are not kidding themselves. They're actually right. And that's going to be a really cool thing to see and a really cool thing to experience. So that is what I've got for Pluto in Aquarius for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it, and of course engagement helps this channel out a lot. This transit is going to be in effect for 20 years. We're going to come back and talk about it again and again, and I would love to come back and host a bit of a talk about this to answer questions if anyone had any. I'll be looking in the down bar below if you do have questions either about your own experience or other predictions that were made in this video today. You all take care. Thank you so much for dropping by. And again, if you ever want to get a session with me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com.